Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for joining. We're going to go through some stock charts, look at some various trade ideas, and try to anticipate where the markets are heading in the future. By the future, really on this channel, because this for the most part is a swing trading channel. I'm not putting out a lot of day trading ideas. I try to anticipate some of the larger macro trends, the larger moves, and I'm trying to get where the stocks are going over the big picture, so that you can anticipate and take trades based on that. That's really the goal of these videos. So let's get right into it. I'm going to start it off with this XLV healthcare sector. All right. What do we have going on? Well, we've got this big sideways trading channel that we've been in for quite a while, about 7 weeks. We're still in it. We're at the top end. You can see right here we overshot the channel, and we stopped right there, closed right there on Friday. And I was actually out camping on Monday, didn't have cell phone service. So we overshot it on Friday, and we actually filled the gap too. Here's a gap right here. Right there. You can see there's your gap sitting at 103.30, and we filled the gap just briefly right there. So that might have been it for XLV. That might have been the move to the upside. We've since came back down and recovered below this resistance. We're just treading water right here. Again, just sideways in general. So this thing is just going to do what it wants to do until it breaks one way or the other, up or down. So we'll go ahead and continue to watch that and look for any signs of a trend change. Let's look at XLK. This is tech sector. So this is, one of the major sectors of the S&P 500. So it's very important to watch this along with, triple Qs. This just doesn't have Amazon in it. What we're setting up for right now, I see a bearish rising wedge. Here's your wedge. And this is an hourly chart. So it's not necessarily a big pattern that is going to resolve, to the downside, but it should resolve to the downside. And given the nature of kind of where we're at in this market, I think that, we could easily set up some momentum to the downside if we start to get some of these bearish patterns breaking down. Here's your bearish pattern, bearish rising wedge. You can see tag there. We've just been holding this. So what you want to look for is a breakdown basically of the pattern. And so what I do when I see these patterns is I either short. When I see a bearish pattern like this, I short. I always think short on this pattern. And then what I like to do is either short when it's up here at resistance, kind of like right here, you would short right there. And then, you could write it down to support, but ultimately we're looking for the bigger move. So sometimes you have to, if you're going to take a position, you have to be willing to take on some losses in order to catch that bigger move. But ultimately we're looking for a breakdown to the downside below this pattern. So 97.86 is where this support line falls right now. We also have this gap going back here. So ultimately what I would think is if we get a breakdown below 96.80, that's the gap support line right there. If we get a breakdown below that, that should set the price action up to the downside. So looking for that, that's what I see there in XLK. As of right now, it just continues to grind higher within this wedge. So these things will keep, these bearish rising wedges can oftentimes just continue to work their way until they get towards the end of the wedge, and then they make a decision and break down or break up. Typically break down though. Let's look at Qs. All right, so Monday and today, there's really not been a whole lot. We've been really just kind of holding right here around this 234.20 level, and we're just sitting there. It's ultimately just kind of chopping sideways. So we are in an upward price channel. You can see it right here. So upward price channel. We're about in the middle of the range right here. So, it's short-term bullish, of course, because we're in the upward price channel. However, I see the market setting up for, I still think we're in a bear market rally. We haven't made new highs, and especially in the S&P 500. The Qs is tech sector, so the Qs could easily break to new highs, while the S&P 500 doesn't. But you can't say that you're in a V bottom recovery until you make new highs. and we have not made new highs in Qs. And if you go to the SPY here, we're well below the new highs here, probably about 7 or 8%, about there, 9%. And that's well within bear market rally ranges. If you go back and look at past bear market rallies, that initial rally oftentimes rallies within, within 10%, 5 to 10%. It can rally all the way up there. And so we're not really outside of any basic parameters of a bear market rally. Although, this has obviously felt, this has been bullish, the rally. What I'm trying to do is point out the bigger picture. I don't want to trade the final leg of a bear market rally. I want to trade the beginning of a bear market rally, and I did. But I don't want to overstay my welcome in a bear market rally if this is a bear market rally. Again, I don't know. I'm only anticipating that it is. Nobody knows. Let's just, get that out. And again, this is just my opinion. This is not, trading advice or anything. But from what I see here, this looks like a bear market rally, and I think we're going to roll over. It's just a matter of when. So let's try to get down into the detail. So here I've got this bearish rising wedge here on the S&P 500. We broke down. We did a back test. Looks like that might be it, like it wants to roll over, but we have to wait and see. And then same with the NASDAQ futures. You can see here on the NASDAQ futures, bearish rising wedge here. And I just mark it out. If I try to draw it like this, I'm just trying to capture the most data points. So if I do that, then I catch the bottom here, but then I'm not catching the bodies of this right here, or catching these wicks right here. So if I tighten it up right there, you can see I'm catching the bodies of this reaction low, the bodies in this area, the tails right here, and the tails all through here, as well as the bodies right through here. So that's a lot of reactions to give support or validation to that trend line. And we broke the trend line, came down and tagged support 94.94. That's your support in the futures. And then we had a bounce, but looks like that might be it. So maybe we start to roll over here. Again, this is just a short-term bearish rising wedge pattern, so it might only play out for a move, maybe down to this 92.30 range. We don't know exactly when a big sell-off is going to start. All we can do is, look for the bearish patterns and look to get positioned for the move, and then evaluate the move as it plays out, whether it becomes a big move or if it's just a little move. Let's look at small caps here. IWM, something to look at. So you got a gap right here, 142.42. That's the top of the gap. As I zoom in, you can see we overshot that gap. This is a daily chart here. We overshot that gap here, closed above the gap, moved higher, and then ultimately that gap was rejected. So that's your resistance right now in IWM, 142.77, right in that area. And we're having a kickback rally, but I expect that's going to hold as resistance again, and we start to roll over. Again, we just have to continue to watch it. The trend is up. Here's your trend. The short-term trend is up. And what we're looking for is, that's the short-term trend, the trend we've been in for the last few months. But what's the bigger trend? What's the six month to year trend? We had this big plunge right here, and we're having a rally from that plunge. I would argue to say, just looking at the S&P 500, that if I go back and look at the bigger picture, here's your big bull market trend. And I don't understand how people can't recognize this. They think we're still in a bull market, but you can see here's your bull market trend, and we broke that trend here. And then, 2019 was a kickback rally. We then failed. We've then had this, impulsive rally off the low. But if you look, what's the trend? What's the bigger picture trend? Are we up? Well, this was intact the entire time until it broke right here. Now you could say we're basically sideways. Short term, yes, we are up. It has been trending up. But I would say bigger picture, looking at the bigger trend, I think we're actually going to head lower. So I continue to reiterate that. And I know it sounds repetitive. And, people are saying, I'm wrong every day. Well, yeah, of course I'm wrong every day when I'm putting out a video every single day in a bear market. You know, if this is a bear market rally and I'm putting out a video every single day saying I'm anticipating the next leg down in a bear market, then I'm wrong every single day in that bear market rally. Okay, fine. But we have to wait to see how that plays out before we can just consider that, you know, my bigger picture thesis is wrong, because you can't say that it is at this point. Let's look at some other trade ideas. Let's look at Walmart. I'm short this one. This continues to work. So we had, if I go to the daily chart here, these are just things you want to look for, but we have the trend line right here. And this trend line is a big bearish rising wedge on the daily chart. See it? You've got lots of reactions up here. We overshot that. As I zoom in, we moved above that, but then that instantly failed. So here's the nice move above it, gap down, fail. Moved above it again, impulsively, here's what, I think this was your earnings. They sold it off and it's failed. So it's made 2 attempts to break to the upside and both attempts have failed. And this continues to trade in a weak bearish price action. Why I say that is we're basically holding below the trend line, and every kind of pop that they get is sold into, and it's just trading sideways. So it hasn't moved down yet, but it hasn't been able to move above, and we're still below that bearish rising wedge. So I think we head lower on this guy, and that's what I'm anticipating. Apple. So this one to me looks bearish. It looks like we're on the end or the kind of the last legs of this rally in Apple. What I see is nice clean uptrend here in Apple from the lows, and it rallied very cleanly. We then broke that trend line right here, and we've been back testing. So we have not recovered this trend line. This is what I'm trying to iterate. When you have an uptrend line and you break it, if you do not recover or cannot recover that trend line, then the stock is essentially set up in a bearish posture. And really what you're looking for now is, because it's set up for a high probability bearish move, you're looking for the sell signal or the trigger. We don't have a trigger. This could have been your trigger right here, the breakdown at 306. But then you're back testing, so you could be adding to a short position on full back tests, or you could just wait for some sort of an impulsive breakdown move, a big bearish candle, something that sets the momentum to the downside. And when that comes, you'll see the Qs and everything else probably sell off as well. So this is, moving higher, but the trend is now losing momentum. So since we broke, we've only moved up about 5% in 20, let's see, we've gone 5% in 20 days. And that's a clear loss of momentum compared to, what we had right here. I mean, you can see in 20 days previously, we went up, right about there, 20%. So 20 days, 20%, and then the next 20 days right here, 5%. You're losing momentum. And now we just look for some sort of sell signal. And it makes sense that you'd be losing momentum because you're at resistance. You're at close to the all-time high. So maybe it's just building consolidation. This is possible too. Sometimes you can move up, gain momentum, then kind of go sideways, gain energy, and then break to the upside. So that's possible too. But until we see that, you just have to anticipate that this is losing momentum and it's set up to the downside. So ultimately, looking for some sort of a sell signal. If we don't get it, you don't get it. So there's nothing to really do on that one until we get that. Microsoft. This thing, I drew this trend line out here. I don't know how valid it is, but you've got same thing as Apple. You have an uptrend here. You broke the momentum right here, and then you've been losing momentum. It's just been trading sideways. Down here, it's been kind of grinding along the support line recently. So all the other reactions, you can see we tagged it, bounced, tagged it here, gapped up, bounced, came down and tagged it, bounced right off. Then we undercut it, bounced only to, about the quarter of the way up, and then we've just been chopping around the support line. So again, losing momentum to the upside, looking for some sort of a sell signal. to confirm that the momentum is now changed to the downside, but it's not there yet. So again, got to keep looking for that. Tesla, I don't have any position in this one, but this one did break to the upside. So as of now is bullish. You can see you've got on an hourly chart, you've got a trend line resistance right here. We broke that trend line. So I suspect we come down and back test it. And then if it holds after a back test, then that would set it up for a bullish move higher. So as of right now, it's bullish. But what I would wait for is some sort of back test and then wait to see what happens around that back test. If this just overshoots and then fails, that's a false breakout. And that would set it up for, you know, a larger move to the downside. And we'd be if we get that, I'm going to target this 650 right here. Right there. That's your gap. So that's the potential to happen. You know, if it wants to do a false breakout, then we'll target the 650. If it comes down and back tests and holds, then I suspect it will continue to move higher. So just waiting to see what that one wants to do. NVIDIA. So this is a short that I have right now. And the reason why I liked it is you had the Gap Island cluster. There's a couple things that I like and a couple things I guess that I don't like. Let me show you the things I like first, and then we'll go through the things that give me hesitation. One, you have a Gap Island cluster right here. So an island top reversal, nice impulsive selling, although that didn't really stick. The selling, if I go to the hourly, you can see it sold off right here, but then they recovered it. So I don't like that. However, it has only bounced back up to the gap. And this is the area where typically any kind of reversal or a bounce back move on a bearish move would end for something like this. So I have a stop set around this 360 level up here. And if it, you know, if it bounces up there and clears me out, then I'll just stop out there. But usually this is the area where it'll bounce back to and clear out any stops and then resume the move down. There's also this trend line though. You can see this trend line right here. 3 reactions, one here, here, and here. So I suspect we're going to have to contend with this a little bit. So even if we sell off and come down, we're probably going to have to battle a little bit before moving lower. And if it breaks the trend line, then I've got profit target at 303 is what I'm looking for. So that is that setup there, and we'll evaluate that. I'll evaluate that as or if it starts to break down. SOXX. So this one is losing momentum, although short term right here, this looks bullish only because we're up near this resistance and we're just continue to grind up near this resistance line. So when I see that kind of price action, that tells me that it really wants to battle and possibly pop to the upside, and that won't necessarily, that gives me pause on the NVIDIA trade as well. So I have to continue to watch this. So that's really all I see on that one. Zoom. This one, I don't own anything on this one. I took a short trade last week, I believe, right here. Caught it right here at this 176 and wrote it down here and closed it at 154. So that was my trade, was that little trade. Obviously, I'm looking for a bigger move, but, you know, this thing is a momentum stock. You don't want to hold this thing for too long when it's going against you. That trade worked out perfectly for me, and I got out. And you can see since then, it's just rocketed straight up. It's gone up, what, 40% or something? Out of control, really. So I'm just looking for I'm looking for another short on this one, but you want to make sure, you know, the entry is very key, and also position sizing. When something is going crazy like this, you don't want to be too heavily positioned in you know, especially a counter trend trade. This is moving, you know, impulsively higher, and so any kind of short on this would be a counter trend trade. But you know, when I see a bearish pattern like this, which is a bearish rising wedge on the daily chart, that tells me that we are setting up, the momentum is running out, and we're setting up to finally end the upward movement in this and break down. So what I'm looking for is, you know, probably a recovery of this trend line down here, and then I'll start to maybe look at taking a position right around this 203 level. So if we sell off today and close around 203, I might take a small position. Again, small, I'm not going to just load up on this one short, but I would look to start to build a short position and look for this to at least come back down to the bottom end of the support range, or potentially break down and actually break this channel. I think earnings are coming out tonight, so that's probably going to set this thing in motion. If they come out with bad earnings, this thing might just wake up to a gap down and break down. Oh, and if they come out with good earnings, this thing could have one final surge higher. So I'm not looking to take a position before earnings. I want to see what comes out of earnings, and then I'll evaluate that tomorrow. TVIX, grinding along support, just like it's been doing this for a while. So you can see here, we're just grinding along support right here. We continue to, tag support and get, 10 to 15% pops off that support. So I'm going to continue to trade this accordingly as we hit support. I'm taking positions as it pops. I'm selling into those positions while keeping a little bit in case in case it finally wants to break higher. And it is a it is a bullish falling wedge. It is slowly creating a wedge, and we're getting closer to the end of the wedge. So this might want to eventually pop to the upside. What I'm looking for in this thing, if I have a position at the time when it breaks to the upside, I don't expect it to get to these all-time high, to these highs of 996. I don't expect volatility to explode that much higher. I think we'll probably get a pop up to, we can look at 231 and then possibly this 312. Somewhere right in there is the areas where I'll be looking to take profit and close out the position of whatever final shares I have left. Again, I sell into the pops, the initial pops, some of my position, and then I'll hold a little bit. And if it starts to fade and go against me, I close it and buy it back, buy the position back at support. And eventually you'll probably get a move up here, and that's where I'd close out the final shares of my position. Okay, gold. Let's look at some gold stocks. It's important to understand where these things are heading. That'll give you kind of the bigger picture as well. So gold futures just kind of grinding higher slightly. Gold bullion. Gold bullion looks like this is the daily chart. Looks like it's set up in a bearish rising wedge. So that's that's short-term bearish, and I suspect we're going to get some sort of a breakdown. Here's the levels that I see on gold. We've got this 1680. We've held that on the daily chart. You can see it was resistance here, okay, and resistance here. And then as we broke above it, it was support, came down, it was support again. So if we come back down, maybe we break it, maybe it holds. It's hard to say. But if we break that, then I suspect we've got this big level at 1570. That's major support. So down there, I would definitely be a buyer personally. And where I get that level, if I roll out, you can see that goes all the way back to December 2011. That was the level, and it really comes from the weekly chart. If I go to the weekly here, you'll see there it is right there, 1570. It was support, and then it was resistance right in here. Once we broke it, it was off to the races right up to 1700. We broke it just shortly right here, but this was the forced selling. When we got that first initial plunge, I pointed that out and said I was a buyer at that time, and that worked out nicely. And so again, if we break below the 1680, maybe we come down and tag this major support again, and I would be looking to be a buyer of miners and all kinds of gold proxies. Here's Barrick Gold. Barrick Gold is setting up in a bear flag. That's what I see. So here's your flagpole here. Here's your flag, something like this. We don't have a lot of reactions yet, so it's a little hard to say, but maybe something like this. Here's your flagpole there. And so a breakdown below puts this thing up down somewhere right around here. That's the major target. So maybe it's this trend line right there. And if we scroll that out, that goes back to that peak there. So and yeah, this one actually, tags some support down there. So maybe this is setting us up for a move down to this area. For me, this is going to be probably a buy zone in this area from, 21, 30 you know, down to 20 bucks, even 22.50, anywhere right in here, I'll probably start to buy the position over time and start to add to a position right in here. And so that's kind of what I'm looking for on that one. That's what it looks like it wants to do. The resistance right here is sitting right at 25 bucks about on the daily. So if we break to the upside, then that could be bullish, and that would probably set us up for a move back up to 28.20. But it looks to me like it wants to move a little bit lower. Okay, guys, that's all I got. You know, in general, the markets are kind of sideways. They're not doing a whole lot the last 2 days. So it's not a whole lot new to report, but I wanted to just get a video out since I didn't do one yesterday, show everyone what I'm seeing, and we'll just wait to see if these charts, if I'm reading these charts correctly, and we'll wait for the breakdowns if they come. Thanks, guys. Catch you on the next one. Bye.